Hey, once a week we travel out to the left coast of the United States. Where are you now? In L.A. this time?
Yeah, in Los Angeles / Hollywood.
And that's Michael Snyder, who's going to give us and regale us with his Culture Blast, or as it's better known, the Moving Picture Reviews. Hey, Michael.
Hey, buddy. How are things on the New York side?
It's rainy today, but what the hell?
Yeah. Gray here and there. Let's move on to the actual reviews because, hey, we got to do it. And you know what? There's a lot of comparatively thoughtful and somewhat satirical movies for adults this week. Literally, I believe 4 of them. I was like, wow, everybody's trying to blend comedy and drama and make a point, and that's a refreshing situation. So let's get to the first of them, the most high-profile release, and I don't know that it's going to do all that good. And you've got Captain America Civil War out there eating up the box office dollar, so I don't have a lot of hopes for this. But let's talk about it. George Clooney, Julia Roberts, and Dominic West star in Money Monster, which is a dramatic and topical thriller with, again, some satirical elements, all about a disgruntled investor who holds a Wall Street guru and his producer hostage on live TV. It's directed by Jodie Foster. And, maybe this is the most pedestrian of the films we're going to discuss, even if it's couched as a sort of network meets Dog Day Afternoon for the modern era of fiscal crises amid desperate media-mad society and, the whole deal. Clooney is Lee Gates, the arrogant know-it-all host of an over-the-top stock tips TV show on one of those business cable channels. Roberts, of course, is his producer, who's burned out on Lee's shenanigans and is doing her last show before moving on to a presumably better job. And, conveniently enough, this last show is the very show that's held hostage by an angry, young, working-class man who has lost all of his money on one of Lee's stock tips. So he shows up at the studio with a gun and a bomb vest and insists that they keep the cameras running and keep the show on the air because, hey, it's all Lee's fault, and he's going to get what's coming to him in front of the entire nation. But is it Lee's fault? The stock that he recommended was ostensibly devalued by a computer glitch, and that company's CEO, played by Dominic West in jet-setting master of all he surveys mode, is MIA. Thus, the badness begins. The script has some tense and amusing moments, but there's sort of a by-the-numbers quality to it that even the star power of Clooney, Roberts, and the rest, and Foster's sure-handed direction can't take to greatness. I didn't know what to expect. I hoped for something better than what I got. But we should also note that Giancarlo Esposito and from True Blood, Chris Bauer, they're in supporting roles here. It's a solid cast, but they can afford to bring in good people and the best of the technical end. And still, it kind of left me a little cold. Not so The Lobster, which is a different beast entirely, because not one, but 2 dark dystopian satires are released this weekend. So, The Lobster is like Brave New World meets Monty Python meets The Island of Dr. Moreau. No lie. The movie is set in a surreal, cracked mirror version of our world, where adult single people have 45 days to find an ideal mate, or they are somehow, through, magic or science, turned into the animal of their choice and released into the wild. Really. Anyway, Colin Farrell plays David, a man who's been given the old heave-ho by his wife, so he goes to a special hotel resort to find truer love than what he had. And there he meets fellow lonely hearts, including a couple losers played by Ben Whishaw of The Hour and the Bond films, and American comic actor John C. Reilly. And all 3 begin their search for the perfect woman. Anyway, David is disappointed in his options, so he escapes to the woods and meets a group of loners who have given up on romance, including a woman played by Rachel Weisz. And of course, she strikes a special chord in David, leading to complications, especially since these rebels are counter to all the rules that this society has imposed upon them, so they are hunted by the authorities. It's as if George Orwell and Aldous Huxley and Richard Curtis and Terry Gilliam decided, hey, we're going to make a movie together. Anyway, this also features the terrific French actress Léa Seydoux as someone playing both sides of the society's big gap. Olivia Colman from Broadchurch and The Night Manager as one of the people running the hotel, and also a few other really solid actors. It's occasionally funny, somewhat inventive and unexpected and strange, but soon it becomes a little draining in its relentless audacity and its kind of skewed view. But you got to give director, co-screenwriter Yorgos Lanthimos high marks for his bold vision, despite its occasional bouts of tedium at the hotel and hopelessness in the woods. This is the kind of film that probably gains a cult following. The Lobster. Now, High Rise was a lot of fun for me, and I don't know that everybody's going to like it, but it was totally up my alley. A brutally satirical adaptation of a slightly more grounded sci-fi property, one that doesn't have people being turned into animals, except figuratively. J.G. Ballard wrote this novel, and it's a violent parable of our near-future technological society in breakdown mode. It's directed by a director I totally dig, the deft and mordantly British twisted Ben Wheatley, whose previous films include Kill List and Sightseers, and who was the main director on a really cool British sitcom called Ideal about this chubby pot dealer. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's pretty entertaining. He's done some Doctor Who episodes. Anyway, this is life in a modern high-rise residence that's like wildly out of control. Tom Hiddleston, who recently made such a big splash in The Night Manager, stars as a doctor who is newly moving into this luxurious apartment, this kind of creepy monolith of a skyscraper. And he's high in the apartment building, and apparently the lower you are in the apartment building, the lower your status and your class. So you got that as kind of a parable. Anyway, he meets some of the other tenants, one played by Sienna Miller. The guy who built the thing, the architect behind it, is Jeremy Irons. He's sort of a puppeteer, and he's in charge of everything. And then the breakdowns start happening, and the violence explodes. I found it really kind of entertaining and engaging. Like I said, I don't know that, not sure that everyone else is going to be in the same bag. Elizabeth Moss is in this film, a really solid cast, and if this is okay, if this is up your alley like it was up mine, I think you're going to enjoy High Rise. But I think a lot of people will be like, no, come on, stop. Things get crazy in this movie. Okay, let's get a little more conventional. Love and Friendship is an adaptation of an unknown Jane Austen novelette, something that maybe wasn't completed. I'm not sure about the circumstances, but it was called Lady Susan. And it's written or adapted and directed by Whit Stillman, who's done a lot of modern contemporary movies about the upper crust in American society, here and abroad, like Metropolitan and Barcelona. And he actually put together a pilot for a streaming service, I think either Amazon or Netflix, called The Cosmopolitans, about young people kind of freebooting in Paris. And I loved it, and it never got picked up. So we've got Love and Friendship instead. The novel is about a beautiful widow who tries to be a matchmaker for her daughter and for herself while visiting her in-laws. And one of the advantages, well, it's charming, it's clever, and maybe a little nastier than one might expect from an Austen adaptation. I mean, is there a 19th century equivalent for the word snark? Lady Susan is played by Kate Beckinsale, and her best buddy is played by Chloe Sevigny. And you've got supporting work from, you've got Stephen Fry in this thing, Tom Bennett, and a few other solid performers. And Lady Susan's going to connect her daughter to this guy, but then she sort of starts getting eyes for him herself. And there's like some silly aristocrats here and, married men that are philandering. It's actually pretty cool stuff. I really enjoyed Love and Friendship. And I dig what Whit Stillman does generally, despite the sort of, kind of, again, this upper crust attitude he brings to stuff. Let's wrap it up with Sunset Song, which is the latest film by a director and writer named Terrence Davies, who's known for these very elegiac, beautiful, and sort of almost, definitely downbeat movies, including The House of Mirth, The Deep Blue Sea, and Distant Voices, Still Lives. This is a kind of a movie of great rural beauty and deep emotion. It's a moving look at a young woman's maturation in the years before World War I. and it's exquisitely lovely. I mean, it's just is stunning to look at, and the performers are pretty wonderful. It might be a little too stately for some people, but I thought that this was gorgeous stuff. You're in rural Scotland in this thing, and if you're not into the heaths and the heather, I don't know that you're going to buy in, but I thought it was a wonderful film, and maybe a little snooty for some, a little art housey for people. But there you go. I think that if you get the chance to watch Sunset Song, and it is your sort of thing, you'll be gratified for sure. What's up with you? What do you got? Have you watched any films lately, or seen some TV you like?
Not really. No, nothing. I've seen some TV I'm getting disenchanted with, but I'm not that I like. I mean, I this week I decided that Arrow is just going all wrong. It is just it's getting so ridiculous that it's losing its charm.
Off the rails is what I've heard people say about the current run of the show. Although, you know what stayed the course? Again, we talk about these shows fairly frequently, but its companion show, The Flash,
is very good. Has stayed very good.
Yeah, and even there are like supporting players. Carlos Valdez, who plays Cisco, he's got his own little web series on the side that kind of links into the regular show. I mean, it's fun for the fans, and in an era where you have these big budget superhero things knocking it out of the park like Civil War, it's nice to see something on your TV tube that is fairly enjoyable. Along those same lines, I do want to mention that we talked about it last week, and Supergirl indeed is migrating from CBS to the CW.
Yeah, which means that they may as well just rename the network the GB, the Greg Berlanti, because he will have now 5 shows on that network next season.
That's just crazy. That is crazy.
He's got the 4 DC shows, and he's got an Archie show.
Oh, he's the guy behind the new Archie show, Riverdale.
Yeah,
which is a live action thing. And I have to say, as a sidebar to that, for some reason, Archie Comics pulled in a pretty solid comic book writer, a guy who's well respected, and they have reinvented the characters and done a couple of really wonderful comic books that are much more modern, drawn in a style that is not the Archie House style. They're out there and they are getting raves and kudos, and I think that this show on the CW may be correlation to that.
But it's just like it looks like, Warner Brothers, or CW, which is partly owned by Warner Brothers, partly owned by CBS. It's not that CBS has abandoned Supergirl. They just moved it over to another one of their networks. But that that the Warner side, which owns DC, is turning this channel really into the DC channel. There's no question about it. I mean, 4 shows from DC out of a 5-night schedule?
Well, yeah. I mean, the work has been very entertaining for those of us who like genre stuff. I think that Supergirl is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy The Flash, and I tolerate the excesses of Legends of Tomorrow because it's so, talk about boldness. I mean, they have the immortal villain, and they're going through time and space, I don't know. I like this stuff.
Well, it's still been a disappointment from what it could have been. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, let's get out of here, okay?
Yeah, good idea. Good idea. You can check me out on Twitter at Culture Blaster. That's one word. And go to Facebook if you like. Look up Michael Snyder's Culture Blast. Like the page or not. But you can hear Alex and I with our little tete-a-tetes, and you can read articles and such. So,
and you can, of course, hear him on our regular feed and also all weekend long right after my shows air. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. And there's more GABNet coming up right now.